Well, you're very welcome to another episode of the podcast. So, we've decided to jump in for the month of July and try and answer an age-old question being, what is the best accounting software for construction companies? And there's a lot of stuff online, a lot of blogs, and generally speaking, there people that are coming with some sort of agenda, like they have a preference on an accounting package that they use, and therefore they'll blog and write about it. And there wasn't very much information around that we could point our customers towards in terms of that sort of unique view or that sort of independent view in terms of which ones are best. So we decided, let's put it together. Let's bring on and generally accountants are going to work. So we have to be fair here as well. Generally, accountants are going to work with various different accounting systems. So, but they will always have a preference. So no one's going to come on and bash any other accounting software and say this is the one we should go for. It's just the best solution on the market. We're not going to get that from this. But what we are trying to get is, what do some do good? What do some do better than others? And try and get a fit for your construction company. So as we listen through the different episodes, hopefully by the end of it, your construction company, you're going to know which one is probably the best fit. And that's all we're trying to achieve. Pros and cons of which. So we've decided to pick what we find are the three most popular ones with customers we deal with across the UK and Ireland. That's Xero, Sage, and QuickBooks. So in the first episode of this particular series, what we're going to do is we're going to sit down with Kevin from MI Solutions, and Kevin has a lot of customers in construction across UK and Ireland and other locations. But Kevin dives in, and we sit down and we delve really into why Xero maybe ahead of, I think Kevin mentions I think something like 90% of his clients are now on Xero, and there's got to be good reasons for that. So Kevin shares why are some of the reasons for that. What size of companies are generally a good fit for Xero. The compatibility question that comes up, obviously being a company founded in New Zealand and a lot of customers in Australia, how compatible is it to UK and Ireland? So we delve into that. For Irish customers especially, there'll be talk about bank feeds and RCT. So we delve in and we pick Kevin's brain, who has a wealth of knowledge on this particular subject in terms of his vast experience he has with software and in particular Xero and construction. So I hope you get some value from this first episode of the accounting series. That's it. We're up and running. Kevin, you're very welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on board.
Good to have you.
Kevin, I like to kick these things off with a little bit about the person we're talking to and try and frame up a bit. So a bit about you. What's your backstory? And you're obviously running MI Solutions for a fairly decent long time. But I mean, what was the idea? Can you go back to tell us a little bit about MI Solutions first of all? What is MI Solutions, and a little bit about how you end up running
MI Solutions provide training and support for accounting software across the board. Over the last 20 years, we've gone through everything. Some of you wouldn't remember it, of course, Y2K and Euro changeovers and all sorts of things. But over that time, we would have implemented all types of software for clients in the accounting side, or general business management software and so on, In that time, we install, set up, support, and train staff on how to use the systems.
Good stuff. And I mean, you've been doing that, I think it's around 20 years or something, when I think I was having a look on your website, which is a fairly long time. We got you on because you do work with a lot of construction companies. I mean, over them 20 years, you would have probably been working with companies going from desktop and maybe then on to cloud. How do construction companies fare in terms of that sort of transition?
Well, construction companies, from the days when I started, there'd be some guy in a van and there would be receipts stuck between the windscreen and the cooler, and the front. And the wife would ring him and say, listen, where's those receipts for Chadwick's? Did you see them? And he'd say, geez, will you go away from me? I'm too busy building here, So, builders always seen accounts as a necessary evil and nothing much more along with it, So they just want to get on with the building and, let the books take care of themselves, So the construction industry was always slow, to change because they never seen accounts as a priority or for their businesses,
And when I suppose when you think about that, then they generally would come to you. Then they come like any great business. Every great business solves a problem. So they come to you with a problem. You then would suggest something like Xero. I mean, how receptive are companies when you do suggest, listen, let's move now from how you're doing things today to this cloud-based technology?
Yeah, you see, I've always installed software using CDs, from Sage and so on, in previous years, and then you went into an office and you stuck in a CD and you said to install that, and then they paid about 2,000 to 3,000 euros for the software, and then they had to buy a server and everything else. But now it's all changed. The software is an awful lot cheaper, and there's no need for any servers or any hardware purchases for all intents and purposes. And mobile apps are driving force to it now, really, because people would say, "Oh, I'd like to have an app that could see what I owe a guy, or I want to see, how much did I invoice this fella? Did he actually physically pay me? I'd like to see what retention's left on that particular job. I don't particularly want to ring Mary in the office and ask her, would you go take out a file someplace?" So those days are gone, and although accounts are secondary, they still would like to know specific small bits of information without having to make a phone call back to an office and then pull a file out of a filing cabinet, as they say in the ads, and then dig it up. But something like that is something, that the reason why they want to move to the clouds. And a lot of it, as again, it's a lot to do with the fact that it's a lot cheaper, a lot more effective.
Yeah, we've seen it actually with customers of ours, actually, when COVID hit, that, being server based and being office based, a lot of companies got caught out at that point and started to realize the benefits of being cloud and being able to log in from anywhere. And a lot of these servers, we couldn't actually, when we got locked down, we couldn't access them. And as you say, Mary now works somewhere else, and Mary can't get access to the key information she needs to actually do her job. I mean, has COVID changed your clients' views on technology, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all about remote working. If you look around this office here, there's no one else in this office here by myself. And before this, people have to travel, sit down, they'd have to, then travel from here to the next location and do some training on site and then return back. And you're paying for, mileage and distances and all that sort of stuff. Now, I employ people from different parts of the country, in the UK here and so on. And they don't have to be at home. And at 9:01, they start their commute, and at 9:00 they're at work, so it's an awful lot different world for them, and it's good for them because when they go and finish at 1:00, they go for a walk and they're back at work at 2:00. So it's as I say, it's a much more easier environment to work and less expensive to run, and less communication needs as well, because you used to be ringing somebody and someone would say, "Listen, I'll ask such a person," and they'd ring you back. And then in the communication is where a lot of it's lost. Now people just look at their apps and look where they are, what they're doing, where they're supposed to be. I mean, I had, a lot of IT here. I remember one day I threw out about 20 grand's worth of servers and stuff that I bought in previous years. And it nearly broke my heart to see them going out the door. But there's only one computer in this office and you're looking at it, the amount of IT expenses have gone way down, and admin has gone way down. So if you have less computers and less people in offices, the expenses are a lot less than they were in previous years,
Yeah. And one of them products that I suppose you be an advocate of and a trainer and supporter of would be Xero. What are the main benefits? Let's talk about accounting software as a whole for a second. I mean, if we're listening to some clients that don't currently have their hands-on accounting software, they just hand that over to their accountant and a bookkeeper. They don't actually get sight of it. I mean, first and foremost, what are the main benefits for a construction company to use accounting software?
In previous years, construction companies would go in with a Dunnes bag full of receipts and invoices, drop them into the accountant and say, "Will you sort that out for me?" And they get a bill once a month from them, or they get a bill at the end of the year and they go, "Where did that go?" or what happened? But what's happening at the moment in recent times is that, job materials costs have just skyrocketed. You take timber has gone up 35% since the 1st of January. Insulation's gone, excuse the pun, but it's gone through the roof. But everything's gone very much more expensive. So if you have somebody delivering items to your site and you want to make sure that everyone is has all their ducks in a row here, because if they say, well, he's after invoicing me for 6 load of concrete there, did 6 actually come in, or was it 5? As well as that, is that the agreed price we had? Or geez, it looks like it's gone up incredibly. What happened there? And you've priced and cost this job out, and if you've lost that detail, you've lost a lot of it. The other thing is your labor costs. At the moment, people don't realize, I mean, with labor costs, okay, you pay a guy 30 euros an hour to do his job or whatever, but you might have to put a van under him, you have to put a mobile phone under him, you have to service that van, you have to also train them in different induction courses and everything else. Then you give him holidays and such thing. If you don't like him, you have to pay him redundancy. So, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff there that the people don't realize there's such sizable costs. And I have clients there turning over 10 million and they're making no money. The thing, turnover is the key to everything. God, he's doing really well. He's got 50 employees. He's got X amount of vans on the road and so on. He must be doing fierce well. But the issue is that, the margins are so small in building, and people don't realize that guys hanging around sites, and sites not being pushed on, getting jobs finished and so on, your margins can drop away very, very quickly. And then you've got retention and all sorts of issues to consider as well. And, retention is often taken as discount in some cases. You'd often say, what's going on here? So look, there's years of that sort of mentality, but if you don't keep an eye on it, using an account software on a regular basis, you're going to lose that data. And, and if you don't do it on a job by job basis, there's no good knowing at the end of the year you've lost money or you've made a small amount of money. Making a margin of 1% over the year in a large company, you'd look at it sideways and say, geez, that seems small for what the amount of turnover I had, so just for people to keep an eye on that. And they could be getting every job in the country and they're doing really well. The reason they're getting the job is they're underpricing themselves. They don't understand the costs are more than what they're actually putting in their tenders and so on,
Yeah. As we've said here before, very easy to sell something for sell £1 million for 900 grand is very easy to do. You'll have plenty of people lining up to buy it. So I mean, when people come to you, then we've obviously they've done a bit of homework. They realize that they do need an accounting software. Why do you push Xero then? Why would Xero be your go-to?
Yeah, well, look, I don't push Xero as in, listen, guys, take this at the end cost. Xero doesn't necessarily, it's not the be all and end all. It has, for a certain size of company with certain numbers of transactions and a certain, size of organization, Xero will suit you. Now, there is other software out there that, I have and I use as well for different clients, but I'd review what they're doing first before I jump in and say, go take Xero, so some clients will come to me and I say, listen, that doesn't really suit you because you've got stock order processing or other areas that they necessarily need to manage. And look, I don't think Xero would do the job for you. So it's a case of the right tools for the right job. So if you buy a van, and you need a truck, you say to yourself, well, Jesus, I should have bought a truck, so if you're going to deliver 5 pallets and it takes you 5 deliveries, you take one truck and you deliver them all. So there's different reasons why people would go for something like Xero. But I wouldn't say, unless it was going to do the job 100%, because it reflects on me, because I have to ensure that it's going to work over the next 10 years, that there's not going to, okay, they may potentially outgrow it and they have to consider something bigger. But as it says, if you've got, we'd say 4,000 or 5,000 transactions a month, or you've got, 30 million turnover plus, you've got 200 subcontractors, Xero wouldn't be the solution for you, but it would be something to be considered, depending on your size and depending on size and your type of operation. So I'd look at people's, situation to say, listen, this would suit you or not,
Where do you feel that cap is? And that's something that does come up,
actually,
come up a lot.
It's not a cap on the value, it's more a cap on the transactions level. If you say, for instance, you've got a client there actually asked me to come into a site, and he had really good software, he just didn't realize it, but he had 5 separate companies. He had an integration with a third-party piece of software as well, and he was in the service and construction business, we'll say, in the 5 different industries. He had maybe 3,000 to 5,000 invoices a month and so on, and he wanted me to put in Xero because he loved it, And I says, guys, I think what they had was actually better than what was Xero itself. They have entry-level software, which is Xero, Sage, QuickBooks, and so on, which is good. You have mid-range software, I use a system called Exchequer and so on, which is a mid-range accounting software. And then you have the NetSuites, which is the very, very large, So depending on where you hit, where you want, you can say, well, these guys want a bit more functionality and they want to be able to do A, B, C, or D. So, as I say, you can't get a van and make it use like it's a truck, You have to sort of pick the software that suits your particular business,
Given then Xero is, I mean, for people that don't know, Xero founded in New Zealand. I actually spent a lot of time in Australia, would have been one of the very early users onto Xero ourselves. We loved it. And one of the main reasons we loved it because we come from a trade background, and traditionally speaking, accounting softwares were not nice looking tools for us coming from the trades. And then Xero came onto the market with this nice looking, easy to use. We could start to understand their accounts when you don't come from that financial background. But I suppose one of the questions would be, that was very easy for us because we were in the Australia, New Zealand market. But given that Xero is a New Zealand founded company, how compatible is it to the UK and Ireland?
Well, accounts are accounts, across the board, accounts are accounts. So, I mean, if you go to any country and you mention the word invoice, bill, payment, or bank, they'll all understand what they are, And although they are Australian initially based and a large portion of their users are there, they have 500,000 users in the UK at the moment plus, and that was the last count, they have 2.7 million subscribers worldwide. So it's not as if it's a small entity, and the UK system, they've outpassed Sage in the UK at the moment because of the number of users that they have. So the accounts are accounts, so I wouldn't worry about that end of it. There is a little bit needed on the configuration of items. Like, for instance, in Ireland here, people wouldn't understand goods for resale, not for resale, that we need to do reporting and all these sort of issues. Typical accounting stuff. But if you come to the end of the year and you don't set up your VAT or your information correctly, your accountants can't use your information. And I've had numerous cases where I've had to wipe and start systems again, where people said, I've used an Excel sheet, I must know how to use an account system. And they put it in and they come along and they said, well, we used to be able to color this in Excel. I says, well, it doesn't work that way here. So you need to configure it correctly for where you are. So I'd have clients in the US, Cayman Islands, Italy, Spain, France, UK, large amount, and Ireland. So the same systems are used generally across the board. I know they have a separate system for UK because it sets up for our HMRC and works really well with that. But so I would say to you is it all depends on how it's configured and set up. As a fellow says, you can send a shovel to any industry and they'll still be able to use it, but you need to show a man how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, one of them configuration points then would be, obviously you've got a CIS module in the UK, RCT. They do the CIS module quite well for the UK, but in the Irish then RCT, how are customers dealing with that?
Yeah, well, you see, we're the second cousins at the moment to the UK when it comes to a setup. The CIS works really well there, and the connection to HMRC is excellent. And have clients use it. In Ireland here, it's just a matter of setting up the system correctly. We set up a subcontractors group within the supplier, so we can pull the subcontractors out of that particular list. And then we set up an RCT liability account. So in other words, we'll have a liability account sitting there. So what happens if a guy gives you an invoice for €1,000, we write 800 of it off, we'll say to pay him that particular element of it. And we do the other 20% goes to RCT liability. And then at the end of the month, we print out a report of the RCT liability that needs to be paid at the end of that particular period, So it gives you a breakdown of all the RCT requirements,
Works well then.
Yeah, it works for what you're paying for. I mean, it does. If you configure it correctly and set it up correctly, you'll get the information, and you get the minimum information you need to pay your RCT at the end of the month. I have construction companies using it there, and they would have a lot of subcontractors. It just gives you a list of all the payments that were made this month to RCT, and that's all you necessarily need to do a return at the end of each month. And it's fully auditable all the way back to the original transaction and so on. So we've all our clients using it. It works 100%,
Given then their founding location, obviously, as you mentioned, they've got a very good and growing very quickly presence in the UK. How does their support compare to others?
Well, see, they work through a partner network like ourselves here, So in other words, there's no point in ringing someone in Australia saying, "Listen, I have an RCT issue here in the Ireland, and listen, them guys in Chadwicks, I think they're after overcharging me." So they're lost, and someone comes to that, So they work through, and they're very supportive of the partner network. From the point of view is that. If you have somebody, somebody will email us here at MI Solutions, and we'll take that email, and some support there all the time. And what would happen is we'll take that email, have a look at it, and see what the problem is. They might have sent a screenshot. We'll investigate the system and come back with a solution. Now, if the emails are coming back and forth a lot, we'll pick up the phone, we'll take over their system, and then sort that particular issue out for them. So a lot of it is done locally in relation to the support, because if you ask somebody who's often in a different time zone as well, a question, you won't get an answer that day. You'll get 24 hours away. I know no one's going to die if an invoice is missing, but still, it's good to get a response. It can be a bit frustrating if you're waiting to do a return, waiting to do something, and you don't understand it. Like the Irish systems here, we have VAT systems that are strange in relation to VAT and receipts, works differently than anywhere else in the world. And, and in construction, you've got RCT, you've why the deducting and so on. They wouldn't understand that sort of issue. And that's why they work through a partner network like ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's important, especially in construction. We find it ourselves. Like when you're dealing with an industry that can pick up the phone to pretty much any other supplier, be it like a material supplier, whoever it might be within their supply chain, they have a service there, which means they can pick up the phone to reps and stuff like that. There's an expectation there that why can't my software provider not give me the same type of service? And we find it all the time that we nearly have to replicate what their other suppliers are giving them, so just to keep up with that type of standard, which we feel is important for them. Like us all, we all have shortcomings. What's Xero's shortcomings, and what doesn't it do well?
As I mentioned before, the case is the right tool for the right job. Xero does not suit every company. It just doesn't. And also you hear the word cloud, people go running for the skies. Oh my God, cloud. But sometimes there's an attitude problem in relation to cloud, but it's not the answer for everyone, so you have to sort of get the tool to fit the job for all intents and purposes. And I like the scenario I said before, you can buy a van, but you might actually need a truck. And I have clients with trucks. So you're talking very cheap software for Xero, but as you move up the software chain, it gets much more expensive, and support and so on is much more expensive. And in relation to that, it can be, but again, we're not everything. You can't be everything to everybody, So, but if you're on the level that you're want to get cloud and you have a certain number of transactions and you're within a certain area, we say, yeah, you get away with that. You'll get away with Xero. Everything will work fine for you. We have a small issue at the moment in relation to Brexit. Of course, everyone blames everything on Brexit. We don't have any bank feeds in Xero since the 1st of January this year. But I have Yvonne there. She does all the training with people, and since 1st of January, we trained all our people who are using Xero to import their bank information. We're working on a solution for that at the moment. But like any software, so, you're always going to have maintenance issues and problems with it over time, so it's all in relation to the setup and in the training of the system. Once it's done right, you say, oh, Jesus, this is after breaking down, or there's a problem with such and such, or like the UK regulators has a problem with the bank feeds that we're working live there. And then but you'll always have small issues, and then the other 90% of issues will be fine. But there's no perfection out there. But once you have it set up correctly and people are trained correctly, and then they have support in the background to help them to put it running, there should be no problem with making sure there's one right. At least you have someone to fall back on if there's any problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's key. I think support is the absolute key to this. Well, I think what a lot of people realize that this similar to ourselves again is software as a service, and the service piece of this is absolutely key to it. There's a bit in that, then, Kevin. So try and bring this together in some way. So if I'm a construction company, I'm either using existing accounting software, or maybe I'm just going out to the market to have a look at all different types of options. Let's say I'm looking at Sage, I'm looking at QuickBooks, I'm looking at Xero. Why then, in your opinion, should I go to Xero if I'm within that size? Let's say that's that particular transaction size
Now,
and turnover
look,
size.
I wouldn't knock any other particular software. I'm a Sage dealer for a long time myself, and I know the systems inside out. And yeah, say you have Sage 50, QuickBooks, and Xero, and so on. They all accounting software functions in basically the same way. You know, they all produce an invoice, they all make a payment, they reconcile bank accounts, and so on. The difference that probably I would put in it is the user friendliness of the actual Xero account software. You'll never hear the word debit, credit, debtor, creditor, work in progress, you know, blah, blah, blah. And many people have sat in front of their accountant at the end of the year nodding to them, yeah, you need to increase your work in progress and reduce your stock and debit this, and we'll credit debtors, and we'll do an accrual, and we'll do a prepayment. There's none of that sort of terminology in Xero. They use bills are from suppliers, and invoices are sent to customers. You know, you have age payables, you know, the people who you have to pay money to. So it's very user friendly and it's not built for accountants. They're also moving with this code-free accounting more. In previous years, you know, you had someone sitting in front of a system and they would go date, invoice number, company Chadwick's, you know, plumbing equipment, VAT, VAT total, next line, date, invoice number, Those days are all gone now, that data entry element of it. And so much so at a client in the UK there during the week, and I set up a system to do that invoice harvesting, which comes as standard. The system automatically takes the invoice number, the amount, the date of it, the transaction, VAT, and so on off the system. It sends it automatically across to the system, and then puts it into a section called waiting approval. And then it sits there, and it's already filed. It's already filed on the system, and so on. Now, the lady asked me, said, would you mind not telling the boss that this system, you've just installed this system? Because I put in 40 invoices and it took me 5 minutes. Because once we programmed it once for that particular supplier of kitchen stuff, there was a kitchen company. So there was kitchen particular items, and he said all the items were done. And then she's ringing me to say, Kevin, this looks too simple. I've just uploaded everything to HMRC, and they said, just click the button and it's done, you know. So this user friendliness and code-free accounting is a big thing, you know. And also the availability of integrated add-ons, you know. If you're looking for something additional in your system, say you're doing a sales system, a CRM system, a payment system like Stripe, or something, other additional items. There's a system I use there called Go Cardless for payment, receipt of payments from people, and it all comes to the bank and it's all integrated into the software. So it's all sort of there's 1,000 apps beyond Xero that if you're looking for a function, like if you're looking for something like yourselves, they're looking for something on site, or if you're looking for a CRM system to manage your system, or you want to just, you know, maybe maintain anything, you just look up the apps market and you'll find something there that'll integrate 100%. It'll use your customers and suppliers. It'll possibly send in transactions in and transactions back out to those systems to see if you've, say you're doing a quotation or a sale or whatever, and they're all integrated. So look at all the account softwares are out there. They all do the basic same thing, but I just find Xero in the area that where Xero is suitable, you know, it's much more easier to manage. And people, I know from my point of view, I spend a lot of time, I still have clients on Sage and so on, and I spend a lot of time maintaining their systems because, we've just got corruption, we've just got a problem, this is broke down, this is whatever else. Whereas Xero, I don't have any of that. People were hit with malware software there because, we never upgraded this or we didn't upgrade that. People can't keep up to date with all these, hacks that are coming at the moment. And your Sage is in one location, in one particular, you know, in the Sage 50, especially now. In the past, it's always been in sort of one location. And if it gets hit, you know, you have no backup. These guys in Xero have backups of backups of backups. They have server farms in different locations, and they have all their backups. There's none of that sort of needed. So I've been in software 20, you know, installing software for clients for 20 years. And since 2014, I think 90% of my clients all use Xero, or they've moved to Xero. Because if you give I do demonstrations for people on Xero. If anyone wants a demonstration, give me a shout. You know, it's free of charge, and I can just go through in a half an hour, see what you do, show you what the system does. And once they see what Xero can do, and God, that looks so simple. Like, and what often confuses them, if you go to one system, there's 20 buttons at the top of their screen, and it says age debtors, age debtors receivable, foreign currency, age debtor receivable, contact, little. Xero's got one button for this. It's got one button that says reports, one report. It's got 5 items on the top of its menu, and you go, Jesus, it can't be that simple, but they've developed it and have it that they've actually taken away a lot of the accounting rubbish out of it that leaves it simpler for the end user to use the system. So just to recap again, I say you're probably using Sage, 50 or something there at the moment. I have a lot of clients still on that, and you can convert your data from that to Xero or go to something in the cloud, in that line, and that's the reasons why I for the last number of years, probably since 2014, that a lot of our clients have moved to Xero.
How difficult is it to migrate from one other system over to Xero?
Not terribly difficult. You usually pick the end of a financial year or the end of a VAT period. That's usually the case. So if you have somebody who say year end is December, you'd like to get them started on the 1st of January. That'd be the ideal situation. Or if they want to start mid-year, say we're quiet during the summer or during the winter, whatever, say, okay, so May, June is the end of your VAT period. So you have 2 months to get your system up and running. Now, what we do then is we give them training on the system on how to get their invoices out and put in their supplier invoices from, we say, the 1st of January, and show them how to do that. And by the end of January, sometime around mid to the end of January, we bring across their opening balances from their existing system, import all their opening balances. We don't bring on all the historical stuff. We're not terribly interested in that. You can go back to your old system and have a look at that anytime in the past. So we bring across their outstanding supplier balances, outstanding customer individual invoices. We don't bother. If you've got 50 invoices from Chadwick's, we generally bring across a total invoice for that, a total one opening balance for them. And then if you have got a customer owes you 5 invoices, maybe he owes you 10% retention on the 5 invoices, we bring across those 5 invoices so we could send them statements. So that's the first part of that. And then we train people then over that month. Then the second month then to February, we probably do bank reconciliations and how to do reports. And then in the beginning of first week of March, then we'd probably show them how to do the VAT and how to do a VAT return and how to produce a VAT system and then plow on. So it's important that you have a cutoff point. So the cutoff point has to be the end of your financial year or the end of a VAT period. Otherwise, it just gets confusing, But generally, then you have 2 months to catch up before you have to do your VAT returns. And I would suggest to people say, oh, we'll run them in tandem, because people, you nearly have to, as I often call it, they would have post-traumatic sage disorder. They hate getting away from this old software. And I say, listen, just cut it off. Stop using it at the 1st of January. And, when I was in Sage, we used to be able to, but if they run the 2 of them in tandem, it just ends up a mess. You just have to make a clean cut, make it there, stop using one system and start using the new, because what happens is people fall back on the old system and they could easily abandon Xero because, oh, I like doing it on the other system or whatever. So that would be sort of our modus operandi. We have a procedure of about 25, 30 items that we go through in a checklist, from the general ledger setup, invoice layout, all the way right the way down to RCT setup and so on. We have a full checklist to go through for an installation to get it from start to finish. And your size of your company doesn't matter. The big, you have to ask the same questions, the same companies. What do you owe your customers at the end of the year? What the customers owe you and what the suppliers owe you, what's on the supplier statements and so on,
Not something anybody would recommend doing themselves. So if anyone does want to reach out to you, Kevin, and get as you say, have a look at Xero and have a look at some of the ways that you work with construction companies, where can they get you?
Well, they can get me give me my email there, kevin@mi-solutionsltd.com. That's kevin@mi-solutionsltd.com. I'll just ring me on mobile, 087 253 1790. That's 087 253 1790. So if they ring me, then I'll have a chat to see what sort of business they are. I'd have a half dozen questions to ask them about their type of business or whatever they are. Then we set up a demonstration, get onto their system. Maybe if you have people in 3 different locations, there's no problem. We'll, like this here, we'll take over a computer and show you. We'll give you a run through the entire system, what it does and so on. And then if you decide to go ahead, then we then start you on the 1st of a particular month. So if it's December, January, whatever, you usually wait till the 1st week of January before you start doing the work. Or if it's a June, you want to start mid-year or something, we'd start July or whatever. So that's if anyone wants a demonstration or they want whatever. And if I feel the Xero is not suitable, I'll let them know that either, So
Yeah, no, brilliant. What we'll do, we'll link up the contact details there in the show notes as well. So if anyone wants to find you, they can find you there. Kevin, listen, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on.
Glad you can take it handy.